Good morning, everyone. Thanks to join us in this webinar. And today we are going to talk about the cybersecurity, network and cybersecurity. And this is our third episode, and we are going to talk about how to make the most of your firewall. The idea behind this topic is because we have seen many of our customers, they have firewalls in their system. But unfortunately, these firewalls are not functioning as secure as they expected. So we hope this webinar, after this today, you can make your system even better. So today, this is our agenda today. We will start from understanding of your firewall and then explain some common mistakes that make the firewall not as effective as you think. Learning from the mistake, we will then share you some information, give you our suggestion of the best practice. Beyond that, we will also explain some advanced features that you should know to find the balance between security and convenience or security and flexibility. This can help your system even better. And in the end, we'll also show you our finished contact firewall families. Let's start. Okay, so the firewall nowadays are very powerful. If we understand them correctly and use them in the right way, it's a great help. Otherwise, it can be a nightmare. So basically, a firewall is actually a router that can connect to subnets. Maybe we say external subnet, internal subnet, or zone 1 or zone 2. And the router can forward the traffic among them according to a routing table. The second, now firewall always come with a feature called NAT, the network address translation. The network address translation can translate the IP address between the two different subnets according to the NAT table. Of course, the firewall does traffic filtering according to a firewall rules. Some firewalls are even more powerful and have a function called DMZ. The DMZ can insert an additional protection layer between these two subnets and filter unwanted traffic according to the DMZ rules. So there should be two small tables. There should be two tables, one between external to DMZ and the other one from internal to the DMZ. So they are different. So DMZ controls these two interfaces according to its DMZ rules. So the firewall is all these functions, all these features in combination. Make sure that all these features are harmonized and functioning in the way that meets your security requirement. Some others have the VPN gateways that do have a remote access capability to establish the remote tunnel. Okay. Let's go to see some common mistakes. The first one is that many people think NAT is the same as firewall because these two functions always come together. They tend to think configuring NAT rules is configuring firewall rules. For example, either one-to-one NAT or port forwarding that defines the only accessible internal firewall internal IP addresses or service to the external network. For the others are not accessible. But the truth is that in this case, for example, I only have one rule in my NAT table from the external IP address mapping to my internal IP address, which is .1. So people think that, okay, the only .1 is accessible from the external. But the truth is, if you do not have a firewall to block all the other traffic, all these .2, .3, .4, all these other devices were still accessible by external because the NAT is not a firewall. The NAT only do address translation. Okay. The second common mistake is to use the use between DMZ and firewall. The purpose of DMZ, as we mentioned, is to create an additional layer between the external and internal. Ideally, if you want to get the data from internal to external, it should go to DMZ, and then the DMZ pass the data to the external. So there shouldn't be any direct access from external to internal. However, some people have the DMZ function. At the same time, they configure firewall rules so that they are passed from external to internal. It becomes a shortcut that bypass the DMZ layer. So the layer additional protection layer actually loses its purpose. So please do not allow direct traffic between external and internal unless you know it's necessary and you know what you are doing. The next common mistake is that the missing outgoing rules, outgoing firewall rules. Most of the time, our focus is of security is to protect our internal network from external attack. So people think that I already set up a very good protection on my firewall to against the attack of threat from external. Hardly the hackers or virus can get into my system. But if you still remember what we have explained about the cyber threat of cyber attack in the first episode, so such as human mistake from internal or so-called APT, advanced persistent threat. These kind of cyber attack are so smart and advanced. The virus can communicate from inside out to collect your data and then even do firmware upgrade by themselves. So to implement outgoing rule is as important as to implement incoming rules. Okay, till now we have mentioned the mistake from the higher level perspective. Now let's get down to more detail regarding to implementing firewall rule itself. The first one is ambiguous policy that mixing accept and reject rules in the firewall table. This happens when people implement firewall rules in a very straightforward manner. For example, I wanted this device A, communicate with device B communicate with device C, but device C cannot communicate with device A. So they just put their thinking into a rule and put into the firewall table. This will result in a long list of rules, while at the same time, there might be still something missing. A better way to do that is to have a clear firewall policy, which is needed to avoid such kind of a mistake. And there are two kinds of policy. One is whitelist, another is blacklist. Blacklist is fit for IT office network, and the whitelist policy is more suitable for OT industrial environment. So stick on whitelist policy and put the only thing you need into the table. Okay, for example, in this example we show, I accept this traffic, another traffic like this, another traffic like this. All these are accept. They are called whitelist. And in the end, you should put reject all. So all the others are reject. By doing this, you will make your firewall table shorter and clear, and the logic is also clear, and also make it easy to implement and also easy to maintain. Another one is called the shadow rules. What is shadow rules? Because the firewall rules in the table are performed in sequence. The one in the top always has highest priority. Shadow rules happen when a lower priority rule that has all his attributes like IP range, port range, being covered by the higher priority one. Then the lower priority rule will never be executed. So for example, in this case, the first one, the IP is actually, the source IP actually we say is a range of subnet, cover a subnet. But in the second one, actually this device is inside this subnet. So if you have this rule before the second one, then the second one will never be executed. So you have to reorder the rules. The rule has more specific, or we say explicit attributes should go to the front, so that they can be executed. This to avoid this kind of shadowed mistake. Okay, learning from the mistakes. Now here comes our suggestion of the best practice for you to improve your firewall setting. First of all, think clearly how to structure your network. By using DMZ, NAT, and firewall, these functions should be harmonized. And then they should harmonize to your final goal. And this should not create any conflict that making system holes or breaches. First one, if applicable, try to use DMZ to create an additional protection layer. Since a DMZ create an additional layer, so please do use DMZ rules instead of firewall rules. There must be a good reason to have a firewall rules that bypass DMZ. So in this case, use DMZ rules saying external to the DMZ or internal to the DMZ. And you should have the firewall rules, for example, black all. So all the traffic are filtered out. Okay. NAT is nothing about traffic filtering. So make sure you have a firewall rules that can filter out all the other unwanted traffics that makes your system safe. Remember, outgoing rules are as important as incoming rules. Don't forget to implement outgoing rules. Normally, you can just simply put reject all and then put what you want. For example, I some data I need to go out, then put those kind of traffic into the firewall table. This will help you to mitigate human mistake from internal or, as I mentioned, some events by cyber attacks. When it comes to implementing traffic filtering, we say the firewall rules and DMZ rules. Our suggestion is to reject all by default. Of course, including the firewall rules and DMZ rules. Both of them has their own table, and both of them should block all by default, so that no traffic can actually pass through. That is very, very strong. And then stick on whitelist policy, which is accept, 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 and in the end, you put a reject all. And when you implement one rule, you should set each rule the attribute as explicit as possible. For example, the source IP address, destination IP address, protocol, TCP or UDP, destination port, all these attributes should be specific or explicit as possible. If you can put one single IP address, you shouldn't put a subnet address. That's the same as the destination IP address. So if you can put a specific destination IP address, you shouldn't put a subnet address here. Okay, so by this way, you can minimize the attack interface, and the firewall rules with more explicit traffic attributes should go to the top of the table so that you avoid the shadowed problem. Okay. Okay, as a just kindly reminder, never use, for example, accept any in your firewall rules. For example, accept any source IP address or accept any like a destination IP address. That is not good. So make this rule as explicit as possible that minimize attack interface. Okay, now you might wonder how to do or what to do if I really need a direct communication from external to internal while I have DMZ. A good news is that there is some advanced feature. For example, one is called the user firewall. This feature will give you the flexibility to temporarily assign specific firewall rules to a specific user during his login period. For example, under normal condition, this wind turbine cannot be accessed from the external, as I just mentioned. The internal traffic only go to DMZ. The external cannot access to internal directly. But in certain condition, for example, when the Thomas he is the expression, or when Mike like a remote support, when they log in to the firewall will open the path from external to internal, okay, for them. So like Mike, he can go into here. And for example, like Thomas, he can go into here. But for example, like Joe, we can set the firewall, user firewall rule that he cannot access the internal. It depends on your configuration. So when they log in, they can access to internal. And when they finish their task, when they log out, the specific firewall rule is disabled. So the protection will go back to normal state. So by this way, you can have a very strong firewall protection, and also you can have the spatial condition. Another powerful advanced feature is called conditional firewall, which you can create a set of rules that are to be activated only when, for example, when the digital input is triggered. The digital input is something, for example, a push button or key switch connected to the firewall digital input, or when the VPN tunnel is established from remote, or when the firewall receives SMS message, or when there is a push button on the web management interface. So in this case, for example, normally the wind turbine will send data to a substation. The path is open. But under the scenario or condition of maintenance, you should, for example, turn the key switch off. Then this traffic is blocked, and then open a remote access so that the remote site can log in and access to this wind turbine. At this moment, this wind turbine is kind of isolated from the whole system, so that it's safe to do change, safe to do maintenance like that. Until you finished, you can switch back the key switch to on, and then the wind turbine go back to work, and then the data traffic goes back to the substation. Okay, so today we have go through a lot of things, including a basic idea of understand firewall features. And also we mentioned a number of common mistakes. Also and after that, a suggestion of the best practice. And we finished on that as a pioneer of industrial cybersecurity. Many people know us because of our connectors, because of our power supplies, because of our component, but actually we are one of the pioneer of industrial cybersecurity. We have this type of a firewall for more than 20 years, even before this cybersecurity standard IEC 6443. So we have a very, very deep knowledge and powerful product family. And as you can see here, our product family from the smart and simple one and to the classic firewall, or even advanced, or even if you have a larger firewall to put it in the center room. And these have a different level of protection. For example, a simple firewall, stateful firewall, or you can go to deep packet inspection, or more advanced to have like denial of service protection, user firewall, conditional firewall, as we mentioned today. And as I mentioned, all of them come with NAT, so don't mix up these two features because they always come together. NAT does nothing with firewall, so you always have firewall features with him. If you need NAT, so you can choose this classic firewall. That's our 2000 series. And if you would like to create DMZ that help you to create additional protection layer, you should go to our 4000 series. 4000 series firewall. And if you need a larger firewall, recommend firewall in the control center, then this one is even more powerful that support firewall redundancy. Okay. And we not just only offer products, we also offer service. We also help you to review your network and give our advice to network or the cybersecurity. Yeah. If you have any question or feel any uncertainty or unsure, unsecure about your network system, your network architecture, or your security, please do not hesitate to contact us. We are more than happy to share our knowledge with you. And this is today's webinar. I don't know if you have any questions.
Thank you, JJ, for a very good presentation.
Yes, if there is no questions, I will like to do a commercial. So the coming months, the next month will be the last webinar for this year. What we are going to do is a very, very interesting topic, that is remote access. This is very interesting and important because remote access has become a very common and convenient way for remote maintenance that reduce costs and provide better service nowadays. But we have seen many different kind of technique, such as VNC, TeamViewer, or connect by a USB. Many of them have a focus on easy to use. But on the other hand, how secure are these technologies? Are you sure they are safe, or they are kind of risky backdoor to the system? So in the next webinar, we will analyze these technologies and compare different technologies and tell you what you might have to pay for easy to use. So please do not miss it. Thank you. If you have any question, feel free to contact us. I think we have our contact information here. So write us an email, or just add us in your LinkedIn connections, send us questions like that. So we are very happy to be your help. Okay, thank you for today. Thank you.